going on, guys? I hope that you're all having a wonderful day today. For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video, we're going to be talking about Anora, the brand new Sean Baker film that just released in theaters, or at least it's sort of just released because technically it came out like 2 weeks ago, but now apparently it's nationwide. Regardless, I finally got to check it out this weekend, and I really want to dive into it because this was pretty much my most anticipated film of the second half of 2024. I really love Sean Baker as a filmmaker. I watched The Florida Project for the first time earlier this year, and I was absolutely blown away by it. It's a film that I didn't just love, but also one that sat with me for like the next month. I couldn't stop thinking about it after I watched it, so I was super hyped going into Anora. The real question is, did this movie actually live up to the hype that I had for it, or did it utterly disappoint? That's what I want to get into here today. So let me just cut to the chase. I think that Anora was a really good movie, but to be completely honest with you, I didn't love it like I thought I would. And I'll get into the reasons as to why I thought it was amazing and why I think some things fell short for me in a second, but I just want to start off by saying this. This movie, just so that you guys know, is basically about a sex worker slash exotic dancer named Anora in Brooklyn, and she basically just gets caught up in this really sticky situation, a very awkward situation, and most of this movie spends time with her just trying to unravel herself from this painful situation that she's basically sort of put herself in, not necessarily on purpose, but regardless, that's what the plot is. One thing I want to start off talking about here is the fact that this movie honestly hits very close to home for me, not because of the sex worker or exotic dancer stuff, but because of the fact that it takes place in Brooklyn. I was born in Brooklyn. I lived there for like maybe the first 5 years of my life or so, nothing too crazy, but I spent a lot of time there over the course of my life up to this point. I was really familiar with a lot of the locations that they were at in this movie, whether they're at Coney Island, they're at Williams Candy Store, they're on the boardwalk, they're just at a bunch of different locations. I'm familiar with this culture that's basically been built up there. So I feel like to an extent, again, not like I'm trying to act like I'm a local, but I do have some insight on what it's like to be in Brooklyn. While I haven't lived there in a long time, and even though I still have family there, I still go there pretty often, it's safe to say that I am more familiar with the situation than 99% of people on Earth, I guess you could say. But this review is not about me. I just wanted to give you guys like my perspective because I feel like I have something a little bit different to offer. Let's dive into why I really liked this movie. Let's start off with the pros. There is one thing that completely stands out to me whenever I'm thinking about this film. It's got to be Mikey Madison's performance. I've seen her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in a super small role. I've seen her in Scream 5, which is, more of a meta commentary horror film. Nothing too serious. It's not like she's really meant to do anything too crazy in there. But this shows that she is undoubtedly a superstar actress. At this point of the year, I really don't even know who else would win the Best Actress Oscar. I mean, it feels like the rest of the year, I don't think anyone in Wicked is going to necessarily win it or any other films. It feels like she's locked it up. Don't get me wrong, the script that this movie has, of course, allows her to do more. There's a lot of yelling. There's a lot more emotional scenes in this movie. But either way, she is able to elevate the script to a whole nother level with what she's doing. Sometimes it's her physical performance with the way she's moving her face or even what she's doing with her body. And in other scenes, it's just the way that you're able to feel horrible for her. Because again, she's this young girl, basically my age. I think in the movie she's 23. I'm 22. Caught up in this atrocious situation that she's just trying to get out of. From there, I've got to say, they nailed the cultural aspect of it. I feel like this movie felt like Brooklyn. A lot of the people that they're talking to, like the local people and just everything about it, it felt very dark and grim, especially that it takes place in a colder time of the year, I'd say, maybe like a fall or a winter. It really got like that Brooklyn vibe, to say the least, especially that they're in Coney Island, they're in Sheepshead Bay, like that area. It was awesome for that reason. All of the shots are phenomenal. It's edited very well. It's a technically well-made film. From there, the first half of this movie, especially the first act, so the first third, super strong. The way that this conflict is set up, we understand where things are going. It's very exciting and upbeat because we're meeting Anora for the first time. We're seeing what she does, how she works at this club, how she's talking to all these guys. She meets the other guy that she's playing off of, I guess you could say the love interest of the film, and we get to see them flourish. We basically get to see how life doesn't have to be like how it is for her right now. It's not like she's necessarily in the best situation. She has a roommate right now. She's probably living paycheck to paycheck. Realistically, I mean, how much could she really be making? but then she meets this rich guy, right? They're going to Vegas, they're doing all these extravagant things. She goes to his huge mansion. Those mansions in Brooklyn are not cheap, to say the least, especially on the water. But as we get into the second and the third act of this film, that's where we get to see the cracks start to form on their relationship. The sticky scenario starts to play out. That's where some of the best elements of this film start, and some of the worst elements of this film. From here on out in the video, I want to have a little bit less form. I kind of want to just go over my pros and my cons at the same time, because I just have so many conflicting ideas in my head. I think that some of the pros tie into the cons and vice versa. Starting off with just a con that I had though, the second act of this film, it's very rinse and repeat. We're kind of doing the same thing over and over and over and over. In a way, I feel like this movie, because it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, maybe could have been shaved down like 15 or 20 minutes. Another issue that I have here is that while we are watching Anora in this situation, I wish that we got to learn a little bit more about her, because sure, we get to learn about her personality, but we don't really know anything about her as a human being, if that makes sense. We don't know really what her home life is like, except for maybe a couple of flashes. We don't really know like where she comes from, what she's all about. We kind of just see this girl that we're meeting for the first time, of course, in the beginning of this movie, just dropped in this situation. I feel like her character wasn't really developed enough, quite honestly. And then from there, I think the worst part of this movie, unfortunately, and this always leaves a bad taste in my mouth, is gonna be the ending. Now listen, this is the thing. When an ending is left open-ended, that's not necessarily a bad thing to me. I look at a movie like Inception, where it has a very open-ended ending, and you're kind of thinking, oh my god, what went down? What's gonna go on from here? But I feel like the ending of Anora is relatively confusing and uninteresting. I get that it's trying to tell us something about Anora and who she is as a person, but I found it relatively confusing, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's kind of just one of these things where I'm waving the white flag, because at the end of the day, right, I make videos, of course, on YouTube talking about movies, right? But one thing that I've never done on this channel is claimed that I'm a movie critic or claimed that I'm actually good at talking about movies. This is a situation where I'm kind of just giving up, because I genuinely don't understand what the last 2 minutes of this movie meant. It's just kind of off-putting, and it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. The last 90 seconds or so sometimes can be make or break for me on whether or not I just loved your movie or just liked it. That's such a crucial part of a film to me. And when you leave off on a note like that, it's just sort of off-putting, because it's very confusing. If you guys see the movie, of course, you'll know what I'm talking about, but I feel like it wasn't properly built up to, and it felt a bit like, we're just kind of going out on a whimper here. From there, the third act, it kind of shows, and this is another pro, how powerless Anora truly is. She thinks that she has some type of power, but at the end of the day, she's just a cog in the machine that is this world. She's just another average person, and it's unfortunate that she's getting screwed over by people that are more powerful than her. She thinks that she has power, but she truly doesn't, and especially as an exotic dancer, someone that, and I'm talking, of course, as, you know, a society, I guess you could say in America, is looked down on or, you know, frowned upon. I think that this movie just does a really good job at showing the gap of just privilege between, like, the richest of rich people and even just, like, middle or lower class people. I mean, these people are just so insensitive. They don't care about anything. I'm sure that some of them do, but it's just the point that they don't even look at Anora like a human when we're talking about the rich people that she's talking to. They basically look at her as just something that's like a bag of meat. Like, they've dehumanized her essentially, and it's really a shame to see. Another con that I have in here, again, trying to go back and forth here, is that I feel like Mikey Madison is doing a lot of the work when it comes to the acting, and the love interest that she's playing off of. I found this kid relatively annoying, and I understand that's supposed to be his characterization, sort of, but I feel like the actor, and you know, I don't ever want to be disrespectful, of course, that's never my intent. It's clear that he is like half the actor that Mikey Madison is, and I don't mean to sound like that, but it feels like even the other supporting characters, they're not the greatest of actors. I found their characters interesting and what they were doing. The situation that goes on in here is very intriguing, especially because everyone's kind of just frustrated and everyone's very disgruntled. But it just felt like Mikey Madison is doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. She's doing a lot of the legwork, and everyone else is kind of just playing around her, which is okay because I get she's the centerpiece, but it's kind of just the point. Pretty much the last thing that I want to bring up here that's sort of a pro and a con for me, I'm still very conflicted and very mixed on it, is the fact that this movie is actually very funny, but I don't know if it should have been funny at times. I feel like A lot of the times in the theater, and maybe I'm just sensitive, I really don't think I am. Like, seriously, I don't take offense to anything. There were some situations in this film where everyone in my theater was laughing at Mikey Madison because she's basically just going crazy. She's like very emotional. Everyone's laughing, right? Because it's sort of supposed to be funny. But I sort of just had a straight face because I was like, guys, this is a horrifying situation. How do you guys find this funny? And I get it. It's funny when a girl's like yelling and she's saying a lot of curse words and stuff. But I was like, I was almost like mortified. Like, this is a very uncomfortable thing we're looking at. How the hell are you guys laughing at this? There's other times where some little gags happen, and the comedic timing, honestly, for the most part, I think is on point. But there was some scenarios where I'm like, why is this being played as comedic? Like, I get that, again, they don't take Anora seriously, which does tie into that. But since we sympathize with Anora because she's the main character, I was kind of just like, why is this being played as a joke? Especially one scenario where she's tied up, to say the least. You know, again, I'm not getting into spoilers here or whatever. I was just like, this is very off-putting, very uncomfortable. I wasn't laughing, but my whole theater was laughing. And again, I think everything's funny. I love comedy movies. I'm not like, you know, super sensitive or anything. There's just kind of the point where I'm like, maybe we should have played this a little bit more seriously. But guys, that's going to just about do it for Anora. Even though it is a film that I feel like from the start to finish does get worse, I do think it's a good film. I just want to make that very clear. If this gets nominated for Best Picture, completely understand why. If Mikey Madison wins Best Actress, completely understand why. I think it's a good movie. I just didn't love it. And unfortunately, that just happens sometimes, but that's perfectly okay. I definitely want to rewatch this movie because I think I might have a different opinion on a second watch. But regardless, what's my final rating of the film going to be? I think that I'm going to end up giving Anora a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think that it's a very good film, just didn't live up to my highest of high expectations. I was teetering on a 4 out of 5, but I don't think I could really give it that rating. But that's going to just about do it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.